Hello, everybody. I'm here to do the live stream and hopefully everything will work out well. Technology, I was struggling with a little bit of technological difficulties, so we shall see how this works out. Um, I thought today we would talk a little bit about the AA book. I really, it's not probably a surprise for many of you to know that I really appreciate some of the writings in this. I put this jacket on here so that you will look for something that has this. I will say this, if you buy one, it's now public domain, and it sometimes is, the page numbers won't line up. So you will see that I'll have like writing and all kinds of things, and you want the page numbers to line up. So, let's just jump right in. I think what I'll do is go to the favorite quotes and then discuss how it applies. And I'm going to kind of do things from the end rather than going through the steps because I might have spent some of the time on the steps. But this phrase says, when I am disturbed, I find some person, place, or thing unacceptable to me. It says, yeah, this is page 417. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, or thing as being exactly the way it is supposed to be. It says nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Very powerful quote. I sometimes try to think, how is it wrong? Like, is that really true? Is acceptance the answer to all my problems? Well, God is the answer to all my problems, but an element is I have to accept the problem before I can actually get better. It just, and my lack of acceptance of it is a problem. I could go on and on many different directions. Think about it this way: people that believe in God and people that don't believe in God. Let's assume that there are people that don't want to accept the idea of a creator or creation. It's an alternative way to think, and I think it could be respected, but it's really hard for me to think that way, like, well, how did we all get here? And there are people that just don't want to accept that. They just don't go there in their thinking. There are people that struggle with, I don't want to accept any illness, any death. So we are plagued with trying to make ourselves look eternally youthful so that we never look old, so that we don't have to face death. There are people that struggle with lots of anxiety around change of any sort. Like, I can't accept it. I just can't deal with it. Just make it go away. There are certain facts of my life, like life's painful. Life has suffering. If I can't accept that fact, it's actually more painful. It's worse. And I don't even realize I'm making it worse. If I have, well, I ended up with a tooth issue where that might have showed that it's not hurting, thankfully, right now. But if I don't even want to accept that fact that I'm going to have a dental bill, it just makes it worse. It makes everything worse. Say like we have children that are doing things we don't want them to do. Well, we just have to begin to accept the fact that they're going to do what they want to do, not necessarily what we want them to do. We have to, how do I put this? See things from a different point of view. And that acceptance, I think it's deeper than just how we see it, but if we accept it, it works better. Um, yeah, there's a Dr. Tiebout, Harry Tiebout, Tiebout. He was a friend of AA. He wrote a paper about surrender. Like, what is the spiritual process for when a person surrenders their life? And I think that's just interesting. He says, I can submit. And words, you have to be careful with some words, but for this pattern, he said, submitting, I may submit to an idea or a law, or if my wife really wants to go to the park and have a picnic, I may submit to it. But I may be only doing it at a conscious level. If I surrender, I'm surrendering at an unconscious level. Acceptance is kind of like at an unconscious level. It's kind of like if I accept that I have an addiction or anxiety or depressed state or a difficult situation in my family or the physical disease, I'm going to do much better than if I just can't accept that. And so that's surrender. And this phrase comes to me. So how has it been useful in the last 6 months? Lots of times. The pandemic. I was in a group of people studying mind-body connections, and when the thing hit the news, a lot of these doctors said they were scared, and I thought, well, we're all here because of mind-body issues, and maybe they're too sensitive. But I did think that it was not going to be just like the flu. So I accepted that, but then there were people around me that didn't want to accept it, which then made me concerned, like, why aren't they accepting this? So I would be tempted to judge them. Then I realized, nope, I just have to accept that people are going to respond differently. As soon as I accepted that some people are going to respond differently, I got better. I felt better. I felt more peace. There were clients who, and I mean no disrespect either way, that were really, really, really in denial about it. They would come in, this is like in February and March, acting though, I said, well, you want to come in, you're pregnant? Don't you? No, I'm fine. And it's like, well, I think we ought to be careful. And I said, let's go to teleconferencing. And it's like, whatever. But I learned that from this person, she really struggled with things much worse in her childhood than the coronavirus. And I realized this doesn't frighten her. Then there are people that went down paths where the mask and not wearing masks. And I've had my share on both sides. Like, I don't want to wear the mask, or I'm wearing the mask, how come no one else is? All that stuff. A lot of judgmentalism could be just kind of fixed by accepting people where they are. It's just so simple. It's elusively simple. People near and dear to me would have differing ideas than I would have. Again, this is embarrassing to say, but I had to accept that that's how they think, that people aren't going to think just like moi. They're just not going to think like me. That's okay. That's really, really okay. I have to accept the government as it is, that people in government aren't always going to be honest. They're going to be manipulative. But see, if I'm going, why do they do that? What's wrong with them? I want higher standards. The media, I could be surprised. Why would I turn on every night and get mad at the media to realize, why are they saying this? They're not honest. Because I haven't accepted it. I have to accept that that's what people do. We all are sinful creatures, and I'm not trying to offend those that don't really believe in sin, but it's just an approach. What I mean by sinfulness is that we're somehow distant from God. We have a sickness that afflicts us. If I don't want to accept that that even exists, then it gets worse because I'm blind. I can't see myself. There's a really good prayer. It's called the Set Aside Prayer. You can look it up, and there's many versions of it. It's less popular than the Serenity Prayer, but I think it's excellent. It goes something like this: God, help me set aside everything I think I know about you. Help me set aside everything I think I know about myself. Help me set aside everything I think I know about my disease or addiction or problems or the situation. And help me set aside everything I think I know about the steps, 12 steps, or the solution. Help me set aside everything I think I know about the solution. Grant that I may see you as you really are, myself as I really am, the disease as it really is, and the true steps for healing. And it's a very safe prayer because any preconceived ideas of God or who I think God is get removed. Preconceived ideas of my problem, like I may be suffering from anxiety or depression or a financial thing. Well, if I'm praying for enlightenment, like God, help me set aside everything that's not useful here, it makes it better. So there's a certain acceptance there. And then, of course, the famous, Lord God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This prayer was from Reinhold Niebuhr. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, but I'm probably not. I'll just accept that. And how fascinating is it that it seems in our sickness we tend to try to change all the things we cannot change. And the things we could change, we're too afraid to look at. And we don't have the wisdom to know the difference. In fact, I feel led to get this little plaque here. So hold on. If you're wondering, this was the chimes. I figured I would give you this. So this plaque here, it's the whole version of the Serenity Prayer. It's, oh God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference, living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking, as Jesus did, the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. Amen. Really good. If I designed the world, I would have this longer prayer because one day at a time is certainly 12 steps. Accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. See, we want, a pathway to peace that's just easygoing. And I think we all do. And we just accept that. And it makes it better to realize I have to say, Lord, if you want me to suffer, I guess that's how it's going to be to have me get better. I had someone in my life who was struggling in a great way and did have a breakthrough, and this could be many of my clients, but I'm thinking of one where this person was able to just accept it. And that's when they started to have the breakthrough. And then it's kind of like, if I'm using hand language here, I go from like this to this. It's like, okay, I'm just letting go. Whatever. I feel like this is so irresponsible of me. I'm just going to let go of the situation. But then I find this was the best thing I could do, was just to surrender, to say, whatever, whatever. I surrender your will, that you'll make all things right. And this phrase, taking as Jesus did the sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, where I'm most upset, and my family could testify, is I'm not accepting the world as it is. I want the traffic to be kinder. In a couple of weeks, I mean, I've had bad things happen, just changes. People are not happy. And it's dangerous out there, and I only have a 3-mile drive to work. Craziness. I like this phrase, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. You know, that may be a different feeling, because I don't know if I pray for happiness per se. I pray for peace or wisdom. Lately, I've been realizing through a series of readings how important praying for wisdom would be. So let's move ahead. Well, actually, I'll read this. Unless I could accept my alcoholism, and this is a story from the book AA, acceptance was the answer. So until I could accept my alcoholism or anxiety or sex addiction or domestic violence problem or compulsive overeating or struggles with family members or trying to fix others or accept the church members that differ from me, any of that, it says I could not stay sober. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. Well, this is key. A pandemic or no pandemic, shutdown or no shutdown, whether one side wins the election or the other side doesn't, or vice versa. Whether I have an illness or I don't have an illness, whether I have extra money or I don't have extra money. I mean, we just have to accept life on life's terms. And if I don't, I won't be happy. This is such a key element, because most of our unhappiness could be rooted in I'm not getting what I want. And this isn't so that we can beat ourselves up if we're really chronically unhappy. This is so that we can understand the principle that Paul, the apostle, said, it's a secret to learn to be content in whatever circumstances. And we often read that, or maybe we don't, but we read this. But to practice this is key. Now, here's the good news. I've had just the tiniest bit of taste of this, and something happens when I just willfully, not willpowering, but will for me is the ability to choose this direction or this direction. That's about all I have. I don't have willpower, but I can say, God, please come into me in my life and help me here. Or I can say, God, I don't want you to come in, which I never really say, but I may do it with my actions. That's what I want to practice, so it's habitual, so that when tough times come, hopefully I'll be praying, Lord, your will, not mine, be done. Lord, I accept this, as you have said. Whatever is going to happen in the end. My mind just went to Mary, the mother of Jesus, who I think there is acceptance when the archangel Gabriel comes to her and says, you are going to conceive the Son of God, and by the power of the Holy Spirit. She says, be it according to your word. Just she was accepting. Did she understand that Jesus was going to die on a cross? Did she understand the hardships that she would suffer? It says that, and I think in the Gospel of Luke, that she had these things in her heart. But that's Mary. That's who Mary is without her, there would be no Jesus. And so that's how important she is, and she's even more important, but we don't want to go too much in theology. But, and I'll just say this is, I don't know whether she understood fully everything, but let's assume she just accepted God's word as God's word, and she just would go through that. And I think that's what we need. We need to just trust that it's God's only going to tell us a little bit. And I think with some of the things we're seeing out there in the world, we could be nervous about, like, really, what does the next winter, fall and winter look like? It's like, let's just live for today. Let's just accept what's going on right now, one day at a time. Here's another principle from the same story. This guy is saying, acceptance has been the answer to my marital problems. It's as though AA has given me a new pair of glasses. Max, his wife, and I have been married now for 35 years. Prior to our marriage, when she was a shy, scrawny adolescent, I was able to see things in her that others couldn't necessarily see. Things like beauty, charm, gaiety, a gift for being easy to talk to, a sense of humor, and many other fine qualities. It was as if I had, rather than the Midas touch, which turned everything to gold, a magnifying mind that magnified whatever it focused on. So King Midas is a Greek tale where King Midas, I forgot how it ended up this way, but he had the Midas touch. Whatever he touched turned to gold. I think the story ends tragically that he touched his daughter and then she turns to gold. But he's saying that other than the Midas touch, everything his magnifying mind focused on, it magnified it. And this is what he says, is over the years, as I thought about Max, her good qualities grew and grew. We married, and all these qualities became more and more apparent to me, and we were happier and happier. But when I drank, or any addiction, or negative thinking, or anxiety, or whatever, when I lose sight of God, we could say, when I drank, or all that stuff, more and more of the alcohol seemed to affect my vision. Instead of continuing to see what was good about my wife, I began to see her defects. The more I focused my mind on her defects, the more they grew and multiplied. Every defect I pointed out to her became greater and greater. Every time I told her she was a nothing, she receded a little more into nowhere. The more I drank, the more she wilted. So this is sad, but this is what happens. We magnify on something and it gets worse and worse and worse. And it's almost as if it's a spiritual energy. There are saints that talk about thoughts are like energy. And when we think negatively, that goes down the path and people are affected by it and afflicted by it. Here's the solution. It says, then one day in AA, I was told I had the lenses of my glasses backwards. The courage to change and the serenity prayer meant not that I should change my marriage, but rather I should change myself and learn to accept my spouse as she was. AA has given me a new pair of glasses. I can again focus on my wife's good qualities and watch them grow and grow and grow. I can do the same thing with an AA meeting. The more I focus my mind on its defects, late start, long drunkalogue, cigarette smoke, the worse the meeting becomes. But when I see what I can add to the meeting rather than what I can get out of it, And when I focus my mind on what's good about it rather than what's wrong with it, the meeting keeps getting better and better. When I focus on what's good today, I have a good day. And when I focus on what's bad, I have a bad day. If I focus on the problem increases. If I focus on the answer increases. So, there you have it. A really good principle. I'm not sure that our writer, I can never remember his name. It might be Eugene, but don't quote me on that. But I know his wife, Max. It's a principle that we have a mind that when we focus on something, it grows. And if I focus on what's good today, whatever the good is, it grows. If I focus on the negative, it grows. So let's take this couple of ways here. I'm going to be silly, but to give some variety here. So if I focus on my gut and start to overthink about that, and pain, if you have any pain, it's so easy to then focus on that because pain's a good attention getter. Then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And if I say, you know what, I'm going to try to eat better next time, or I will try to take a medicine or something, but I'm not going to let this, or if I'm doing a mind-body exercise where I'm going, what's really bothering me, what's eating up at me, I will then start to do better. But to focus on it all day and to get wrapped around the axle is not helpful. Yeah, this is a true story. It's really kind of funny. My poor wife, I say poor wife, my dear wife, yesterday wasn't feeling well. First time in like months, and it's like, okay, we had visited Idaho. We actually had a really good time. And mindful of coronavirus. So we took all the precautions, but we're also going to live our life. So we go. In fact, I think I'm going to do screen capture here just to give some variety. So she wasn't feeling well. And we weren't even on, I wasn't near her. In fact, my son and I went to pick up a car because we needed to get a new car for him. It's his only car that he's gotten. Not a new car for him, but a new car that he could fit in. As we come back, we learned that my wife is sick, and now I'm starting to feel sick. That's how suggestible we are. And my son, being who he is and studying psychology, said, Dad, oops, we don't need that. You get to see how the system works there. I'm going to, there we are. Hopefully this will show you a little bit. So yesterday we went to a church in Spokane, or not yesterday, the day before. Let's see. We'll see some things. My wife, she says, look, we saw these sand castles, and she says, is that real? And I laughed. I said, no, it's not real, but it's cute. I got a chuckle out of that. We were in a place called Sandpoint, Idaho. And I had this thought, this was the first getaway I think we ever did, meaning I just wanted to get away. Usually I go on vacation to go see something cool and fun, but this was just to get away from being here. Yep, Sandpoint is beautiful. You see the flag there. They're very patriotic, it seems. And I'm not sure if they've always been this way or just because of the times. This was cute. My family's into cats, not my mother and sister and my wife. So that was a blouse. I took lots of pictures just to. Okay, let's see if I can get to beautiful stores, which we can look at. And we went to this church up in Bonners Ferry, really close to Canada, and like 20 minutes from Montana. And then, yeah, you see all kinds of things. We the people of Boundary County. So there's a Boundary County respect, welcome all who respect diversity, equality, and human rights. I thought that was pretty nice. Okay, let's see if I can get to the next. Yeah, this was a interesting store. I wanted to venture in. It was called the Hippie Store. It creeped me out just a little bit, but it was just tie-dye shirts, and then we had a nice little food truck experience. We were looking for something to eat on um, the 29th. That would be appropriate. There's my lovely wife. She doesn't like her picture taken, so I will honor that as much. Yolks was the name of the store. So we did some exploring. Yeah. And at night, quiet. Just nice and quiet. Yeah. So what we focus on, so notice I changed the subject here from what we're talking to just nice, hopefully pretty pictures. I did a nice walk to the beach and prayed some prayers. Nice. I didn't feel frightened. That's the funny thing. It was just a different experience. This, I thought, was really kind of cool. Free handyman for disabled veterans. It's like that was pretty cool. And it made me realize I'm not disabled. Here is my good friend Bob, who is the mayor of Lamont. I learned, we reconnected, and he is the mayor of this small town of 70 people. So, yeah, and then we drove home. Stopped at this little place called Cow Creek. Again, here's a fascinating thing. I went and thought, well, I'm not sure I want to eat where there's these items, and it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's a gift store. How good can things be? Well, actually, they had a gluten-free pizza, and I had no cheese on it. And my wife had a really good tuna sandwich. It was actually quite good. So you see, my poor brain goes down the path of expecting things that I should just not expect as much. And we're going to talk about that in a minute here. This was our trip coming back. So let's go back to here we are again. So that was a little detour. Hopefully you found that interesting. But what you focus on increases. And today I was focusing on too much of my health. And then I thought, nope, enough of that. I called a good friend. And then tonight I had the opportunity to help someone, I hope, by sharing, well, we'll say God, or, from a counseling point of view. People might go, well, what does God have to do with counseling? Well, if a person's open to God, God could actually provide all the comfort, support, and strength and power to carry on. And if God is the creator of all of us, and all of our problems could be boiled down to troubles interacting with this world, in the way we need to interact with it. And that's kind of philosophical, but really, if I want the world the way I want the world, I'm going to run into troubles. If I accept that the world's the way the world is and people are the way they are, my job is to love them. I'm the way I am. I need to accept that. Now, accepting doesn't mean settle for. It means that right now, say like I'm having a panic attack or I have a kidney stone. Oh, that would be not fun. And I've never had one, but I've had friends. If I'm going to fight it, wrestle against it, not accept it, it makes it worse. If I accept it and say, God, be with me in this moment, help me any way you see fit. I ask for your peace, your strength. I ask for joy. Yeah, I don't even know what to ask, but just give me everything you think I would need. That's the best thing I could do to help in that situation. And I'm not trying to be not respectful to people who don't believe in God, but I'll just contrast this. For those that don't believe in God, then I'm not praying. I'm going to use my brain power to, and I'm going to be this respectful, very respectful toward this. I'm going to use my brain power to figure out what is the best solution. I may run to a doctor with kidney stone. I might just read a book or deal with the panic attack through the exercises and the breathing, through cognitive behavioral. I may even do neurofeedback. I may choose a medicine route. And that's all based on my thinking. I mean, it's just still thinking. I'm going to solve my problems with my own thinking and trying to go, if I don't know the answer, then I'll go to the internet to learn the answer. So, and then I have to use my own power and strength. And I mean, I have enough muscle to lift this book, but what if something's too heavy for me to lift? And that could be physically, like, well, it is too heavy. I need help. I need a team of guys to help me move the piano. If it's spiritually, I can't lift this anymore. I can't carry this on my back anymore. And again, I'm moving towards the other side, towards the spiritual. Nope, this is as good as it gets. And that's why when it comes to addiction, I really believe that addiction is a spiritual force that's stronger than us. We just can't just say no. If it was that easy, boy, we'd have a lot of changes in Washington State and Washington, D.C. People just say no to all the lying and the bad feelings and the gossip and the slander and the drugs and the alcohol and the promiscuous sex and all. Yeah, just say no. That was a clever saying, whoever invented that. It doesn't work that way. This book says that it's the famous section, lack of power was our dilemma. It says if a mere code of morals or a better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism or any of the problems that we face. So like anxiety attacks, emotional disturbances, family troubles. Yeah, if a mere code of morals or better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome our problems, many of us would have recovered long ago. Why? Because we know what to do. Be kind to everybody. Just be kind and forgiving to your family members. Just go get the best doctor you know to do to help the surgery. Just if you don't have the money, just go get a job and get a better job. Just go do it. Just do it. And that sounds like a saying. The problem is there are things too big for us. It's just human nature. There are things that emotionally we can't even do. There are people that struggle with just bills and compulsive spending, and they can't even open up the mail to see the bill, organize the bill, come up with a logical solution on how to pay the bills. No, there's some spiritual force that darkens their minds so they just can't deal with that. It's the same thing with weight loss. Like, it's not rocket science. And yes, there's lots of science, lots and lots of science. How much science can we have about how to lose weight? That's not the problem. The problem is a spiritual one. There seems to be some force that makes us do things we don't want to do. So how are we going to solve this? Well, it says it's not going to be through a better morals or better philosophy. It says, but we found that such codes and philosophies did not save us no matter how much we tried. We could wish to be moral. We could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, that we could will these things with all our might, but the needed power wasn't there. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. Obviously. But where and how were we to find this power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourselves that will solve your problem. That means we have written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral, and it means, of course, we are going to talk about God. Here, difficulty arises with agnostics. Many times we talk to a new man and watch his hope rise as we discuss his alcoholism or his problems and explain the fellowship. But his face falls when we speak of spiritual matters, especially when we mention God, for we have reopened a subject by which our man thought he had neatly evaded or completely, entirely ignored. And it goes on to talk about doubt and prejudice. It's a very good book in the sense that it's respectful of those that don't believe in God, but it helps them be more open to it just by looking at various facts in the world and keeping the door open with, you don't have to nail God down exactly to get benefit from this program. You just have to acknowledge that there is a power in the universe who created us that's a loving power, and you ask this power for enlightenment to reveal who he is and her help. And often he is anonymous in this program, that we don't have to understand exactly who he is before he begins to help us. In fact, he helps us when the moment we say, help me, I have no more good ideas, I give up, surrender. And I surrender, like at an unconscious, deep level, I give up. When we do that, we're going to be happier. We're going to experience his power flow into us when we sincerely take such a position. And all of a sudden, the addiction begins to become less and less and less. And then we go, you mean those 3 treatment centers I paid $40,000 for that didn't work, and I get this book, and I just do what it says, and I start getting better. In fact, you can read this book forever, but if you don't practice it, it's not going to work. It's really simple. And I'm working on a website called simplerecovery.org or .net. I need to just get on that because it's just going to be about the simplicity of the program. And when life gets complicated, it's not a good thing. So really, how do I apply this? Say like I'm not feeling well physically. I surrender to God and say, God, what do you want to have happen? Do you want to heal me? Do you want me to be not healed for a while? Your will, not mine, be done. I wasn't feeling too well last night. Then in the middle of the night, is not feeling too well. This morning I felt fine. It was kind of weird. Like, it shows you what I know. Only God knows the future, and I get screwed up when I start thinking about the future. It's just not a good place to go to for me. this afternoon I wasn't feeling well emotionally because I was trying to use logic and brain power to figure out how to lower my sugar levels. And I was getting recycling stuck in all that. I was, realized, well, diet and exercise was a lot of what they said, but maybe there's a supplement I should take or something like that. I realized, you know what? I need to practice this. Just trust in God, practice walking. So I walked until I was sweaty and talked to a good friend. Felt better afterwards. Um, Here I was trying to change the things I cannot change, which is make my blood sugars go down. By the way, I would ask for your prayers with all humility that God's will be done in all this. Um, if I think positively, I could be thinking of, thank God I got a glucometer, took my little blood thing and discovered that the rising. It makes sense for my tiredness after eating. It makes sense with some other issues. So I'll just do it a step at a time and leave the rest to God. And I say that just to, I don't know if we share what our plans are with others, it seems that it works just a little bit better than just private. I think some things are private, but when you get them out, it does say confess your sins one to another that you may be healed. So getting this out and sharing with you helps me in the sense that I'm being more human, explaining that these are the things I'm suffering from. Sounds too extreme, but well, I could say suffering. But I want to practice these principles, and they work. Yeah, serenity is going to come when we accept things as they are. And many times in life, I've been shocked at something happening and I didn't want it to happen. Takes my breath away a little bit, but then, a month later, a year later, I've accepted it. And then I don't even think about it. So I do think a lot of us, and I mean this so respectfully, that we get into a cycle and we have to be gentle with people that are fearful or angry. It's so easy to judge. It's so easy to look at people and say, why do you do that? It comes back to this, just say no. No, we have to see them as powerless as we are. We just may have different things we're powerless over. And I love this phrase, but for the grace of God, there go I. So if I'm looking at a brother or sister and go, well, why do they do it? It's like, wait a minute, stop. Except for the grace of God, power of God, I would be doing what they're doing. So God, have mercy on me, have mercy on them. Help me to be kind and loving and merciful. But I'll talk about the disease. The disease, Erik, looks at things as though from human eyes and perspective, and people should just stop doing this. Again, just as if they had the ability to do this. It's really helpful to see that people are doing the best they know to do. It may not be the best. I don't have to agree with that. But if even people I disagree with, I see it as they're doing the best they know to do. I think for the most part, people are wanting good things. I don't think there's a lot of malicious people out there. I'm not saying there aren't a lot of bad things that happen, but I think they mean well. The person who struggles with domestic violence, who is really convinced if everybody would do as he wants, everything will be fine. So the problem is controlling and mean. I had a discussion with a wonderful spiritual, we'll say an Orthodox priest, who we were talking about someone speaking and sharing a message. And he said this, he said, I think that the person means well, but how they carry the message sometimes is rough and harsh. And it's like, yes, this was spot on. And thankfully, I was able to think, I do that too. I can have a message that I'm so bold with that it could be too harsh. And it's presentation. I used to joke with my father, who, bless his memory, I'd say presentation is important, Dad, and he was always arguing, no, it isn't. It doesn't mean a hill of beans. It's the content of what you're sharing. But see, I'm a therapist. I could say a lot of things, and if I say it in a mean way, it's not going to help anything. I could be the smartest person in the world, and if I don't present it well, I also like presentation. If you're going to have a meal and a special occasion, you make it look nice. You put nice decorations or flowers, or people feel better. And I used to do workshops, and if we bought fresh flowers, we had really good coffee, we'd have mints afterwards, we'd have music that was, I thought, spot on. People just loved it. Well, I think it was the content, but if we didn't add those extra things, it just doesn't it just doesn't work. So I think with life, if we see people as doing the best they know to do, and how they present things doesn't always work out, and maybe they just need help with presenting skills, and I think we all need help that way. So if you're out there and you have comments, I say that I should probably look at the comments more often to see what's going on. Maybe there are questions and people wanting help with this and that. But I do think that there's a lot in this book that's useful to people. Maybe one other. Well, the principle from that same, it's called what I called the acceptance speech. In the fourth edition, it's called Acceptance is the Answer. He talks about his alcohol and drug addiction, but see, when I focus on what's good today, I have a good day. When I focus on what's bad, I have a bad day. If I focus on the problem increases. Does the media focus on the problem? Something to think about. Does the media talk about solutions? I'm not sure. I think that's where teachers, educators, nurses, doctors, it all changes if people focus on the solution. If politicians focused on the solution rather than the problem, and I'm not saying there's never a place for the problem, but I think if that's all we focus on, it increases. Take racism. We have focused on the problem, the media is focused on the problem, and it's increasing. Now, I'm not saying we should be in denial about it, but I think we need to accept it and then move towards the solution. Same thing with anything. Say, like my own life, if I'm getting down about problems, like what's going to happen here, and oh no, that, and like, no, what is the solution? The solution is always the same for me, which is to connect with God, to pray, to ask God for direction and everything. That's why I really like this program, because, well, and it's Orthodox Christianity, but there's differences there. But I focus on what does God want me to do today. And if I don't have an immediate solution, then I just take it a step at a time. Do I have peace? Do I have a lot more peace? I have a tremendous amount of peace when I surrender. I let go and say, whatever you want to have happen. I think this is helpful. Today, Max and I try to communicate what we feel rather than what we think. We used to argue about our differing ideas. Well, that's interesting in the world. But we can't argue about our feelings. I can tell her she ought not to think a certain way. By the way, when I read that, I think of crossing boundaries. But I certainly can't take away her right to feel however she does feel. When we deal in feelings, we tend to come to know ourselves and each other much better. It hasn't been easy to work out this relationship with Max. On the contrary, it's been the hardest place. This program has been in my own house with my own children and finally with Max. It seems I should have learned to love my wife and my family first, then newcomer to AA last. But it was the other way around. Eventually, that's why meetings are helpful. You practice the principles there too. It says, I had to redo each of the 12 steps specifically with Max in mind. From the first saying, I'm powerless over alcohol and my home life is unmanageable by me, to the 12th, in which I think of her as a sick Al-Anon and try to treat her with the love I would treat a sick AA newcomer. When I do this, we get along fine. Perhaps the best thing of all for me is to remember that my serenity is inversely proportional to my expectations. The higher my expectations of Max, or the world, or other people, the lower is my serenity. I can watch my serenity level rise when I discard my expectations. But then my rights try to move in, and they too force my serenity level down. I have to discard my rights as well as my expectations by asking myself, how important is it really? How important is it compared to my serenity, my emotional sobriety? And when I place my value on my serenity and sobriety more than anything else, I can maintain them at a higher level, at least for the time being. So, high expectations of everything around me, low serenity. And there's a writer, M. Scott Peck, who wrote The Road Less Traveled. He said something really interesting, and this might have been in his book, The People of the Lie. He said, why is it? He thought that deep down, we think everybody is really good. Except in Christianity, it teaches that people are sinful and they're afflicted with sin sickness. So then why do we expect good from people? And he says, no, we all are afflicted with this sin. Why don't we think today people are going to spat upon me and treat me poorly and be rude and try to steal from me and misuse me, etc. Any way you can think about. And that when something good happens, that's the miracle of it. Because if that's how humankind is, that we're all kind of selfish, but see, that viewpoint does look negative. Strangely enough, probably more people around me have done good to me. But it's very interesting to change my orientation. Like the orientation is that I expect everybody to be like me. Them to be good. And I think it works as a therapist to see people as trying to do the best they know to do. Let's put it in the world. Like, why am I surprised when there's murders and stealings and riots and corruption? And we go, oh, I can't believe this happened. Well, believe it. I mean, of course. I should be ever so thankful and surprised when good happens. And I shouldn't be judgmental towards the people that are doing those things, including myself. No, what I need to do is be understanding and realize we're all sick. I mean, it's as if we all are sick with some virus of sin. And we just all are trying to get better. And the only solution is God. And it's a simple solution, but a difficult one. And rather than trying to hurt each other in our sicknesses along the way, we could be there to comfort one another and to help each other. So lower my set of expectations. And this happens with people wanting healing faster. Too high of expectations, we don't do well. If I go into a surgery and they don't prepare me to say you're going to have some discomfort, I'm going to be freaking out. If they help me to expect reasonably what's going to happen, that helps me. Now, can we go the other direction and think morbid thoughts and it's going to be worse and make it worse? We can. That's why having a wise estimation of ourselves, it says in the epistles, really important to do that, to see things clearly. Eyesight really does help a lot. So we learned about magnifying mind. We learned about lack of power, expectations, letting go, fixing our eyes on things that are good, and it's a good way to. And I think flexibility is key. That we do get stuck, so we can pray for flexibility. So I hope this comes across respectful and peaceful to people. I know that I'm talking a lot about God, but I do feel that it's important to talk about God in times like this. If we leave God out of this equation, I just don't see a happy ending. But that sounds negative, but I see a happy ending with God. So with that, I wish you well, and I wish you Godspeed. And you guys take it easy. And if you want to see more of something else, let me know that. If you don't like certain things, it's kind of good to know what you don't like as well. Take care, everybody. We shall see you later.